Oh, medic. Man, where do I even start with this guy? I mean, you've got a complete and total psychopath in a support role. That kind of seems like a recipe for disaster, and honestly, it kind of is. Medic mains are notorious for being a mixed bag. You could get a super nice guy one moment and then have a complete asshole the next. You never really know, but you might be able to know if you take a look at his weapons. Actually, you know what? Not really. Okay, hang on. You know what? Full stop. Stop. I know you guys have heard this a million times before, but apparently people are still taking these things as gospel. So I'm doing the disclaimer thing again. Stereotypes don't mean everyone. Like, I know you've heard that so many times, but I'm serious. This series is meant to poke fun at the assumptions that people make. Don't make those same assumptions because some ginger idiot from Texas said so in a satirical series. Like, seriously, stop. Just, okay. Are we okay? I'm sorry. I had to get that out because people are still taking these seriously. Start the music. Start the episode. Let's go. The syringe gun is actually kind of okay. If you can aim it, it does pretty decent damage. That said, it's really underused by experienced players because, you know, the crossbow just exists. Its regen is really good when comparing it to the Blutsauger, and it can be a decent tool to deter people from chasing you, but at the end of the day, people who use this really fall into one of three categories. New player, ×10 enthusiast, or hipster who insists that it's an underrated weapon and refuses to use the meta out of principle. This is the second most common primary. You'll see it used somewhat often, but not too much. Basically, this guy is either a battle medic, in which case just give up trying to get heals from him, just like unbind your EQ, dude, it's not gonna happen. Or a guy who doesn't trust his team or his pocket in the slightest. It's the go-to weapon for the situation that I like to call the for fuck's sake, there's a scout in my face and my team isn't even turning around. Again, you know what, fine, I'll do it myself, screw you guys. This is a part of the meta, so basically everyone uses this. Funnily enough, I have found that as useful as this is, as good as it can be with a coordinated team, it's not nearly as god tier in pubs as everyone says it is. Or maybe that's just because I suck with it, I don't know. When you see a crossbow medic in a pub, he is either a clutch god who nails 150 health cross-map arrows constantly, or he's that one guy who can't actually aim it, but insists on using it for the burst healing and faster Uber build, except, you know, you could have built 20% already while you've been standing here missing me at point blank, and now I'm dead. Okay, thanks, man. Oh man, I'm so fast! Too fast, too quick! Oh, look out! I'm going so fast! You can't hit me! I'm invincible! Except not really, because that 20% buff really isn't all that much. And it only happens when you have really high Uber and you have your primary out, meaning you're probably using it to try and escape. This weapon would be way, way better if the speed buff was passive, but as it stands, it's pretty useless. Most people who want more survivability use the Blutsauger, so if you see this weapon out, there's a very good chance that they either don't take the game seriously and are just messing around, or they are completely clueless and they probably don't even know what game they're playing. Once again, this is a part of the meta. Pretty much everyone has used this at some point, and for good reason. It's just really good. Uber charge is really good. And honestly, it's tough to pin down a medic going off of this alone. I mean, you can usually assume that they're only playing medic because nobody else will play him, and they spread heals fairly evenly, but they'll favor those with fancy hats and weapons. So, you know, basically your typical medic.
This medic undoubtedly has a soldier boyfriend with an expensive, unusual, and a full professional killstreak set. He uses the KRITZKRIEG because he's gotten so familiar with the game that he doesn't actually care about playing it smart anymore. He just wants to pub stomp and ruin people's days. Each one of those sweet crit kill assists fuels his ego more and more. He's so used to facing basically no adversity after his thousands of hours in TF2 that when there is any legitimate competition, he blames the game for being bad or unbalanced just because he can't get his 25 kill streak. And by this medic, I mean me. I do this. I'm sorry.
This guy will spread heals very evenly, surprisingly. This is usually the medigun that gets used when his team really isn't that great, and they're taking too much damage to heal with any of the other mediguns. So I guess this also fits into the I don't trust my team to keep me safe category of medic weapons. It's also a very useful anti-pyro weapon, since you get immunity from knockback with the Uber. Surprisingly, not many people know about this, and killing an air blast happy pyro with this will very often lead to accusations, which are always fun.
Hello, Vaccinator! Otherwise known as the anti-cheater weapon, there are generally two distinct stereotypes that follow this weapon, the newbie and the veteran. The newbie is that player who's real new to the game and just got the Vaccinator from a drop. This player goes into this weapon completely clueless. You'll see them either indefinitely stuck on the bullet resistance because they don't know how the weapon works, or they just straight up don't know what the key to switch resistances is. If these players do know how to switch resistances, they usually have a response time as slow as a ×10 brass piece heavy trying to move. Now, the other kind of player you can see is absolutely terrifying with the Vaccinator. This kind of medic has experience with the class and the weapon. They have split-second reaction time in switching and activating resistances. They stack up the charges, charge into an enemy team with its allies, and will basically never die if it's a bullet, an explosion, or fire. Go Spy or Demo Knight to take care of these guys, cause chances are your pub team won't be able to coordinate well enough to gang up on the medic and overwhelm them. If it's not one of those stereotypes though, it could also just be some friend of a cheater pocketing his impeccable, never miss, snapping sniper pal to dominate and annoy the rest of the server. Those guys are dicks.
We're now here at the live premiere of Medic Weapon Stereotypes, where everybody's excited to hear the stereotype for the stock bone saw. Everybody knows the obvious joke to make in this situation, but nobody knows if Soundsmith is gonna make it. I'm on the edge of my seat, Peter.
I couldn't agree more, Rob. Soundsmith has an incredibly strong season as a professional obvious joke maker, but given some of his past seasons, I'm not sure he's gonna pull through.
Well, it looks like we're about to find out. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Array 7.
He did it! He actually did
He made the Array 7 joke! I can't believe it!
Really though, there is a reason this weapon has achieved legendary meme status as the useless stock weapon. There is no reason to use it over the VACCINATOR outside of I'm just dicking around in a pub. Like, at least the Amputator is somewhat useful in a very specific situation, and the VITA-SAW is supposedly getting a rework in the next update, but this weapon is just, like, man. This is a great weapon to use when your team can't protect you at all. It sees pretty frequent use in pubs, which are notorious for this. At the end of the day though, it's pretty bad compared to Medic's other melee options. I should also mention that it's getting a rework on the coming update, which might change things. The new organ harvesting mechanic seems really cool, but I bet it's one of those things where we won't know for sure how good it is until we try it ourselves. So I guess if you see a medic with the VITA-SAW, he probably doesn't trust his team at all, and he's also running the Blutsager and the Quick Fix. I haven't used this weapon too much, so I'm not really in a position to say how good of a weapon this is and how big of a buff the whole seeing enemies health thing is. One thing I've noticed though is that the people who use the Solemn Vow will always swear by it as a viable alternative to the VACCINATOR. Even though basically everyone disagrees with them, they'll stick to their guns no matter what, which is actually kind of respectable. This weapon just makes me sad. Like, it's such an interesting weapon concept, and the AoE healing thing seems like it could be huge if it wasn't just completely overshadowed by the VACCINATOR. In order for a medic to be effective with this, he needs to be in a safe spot so he can taunt and have lots of hurt teammates near him. It's a common choice to see in medieval mode and maps with hilariously bad choke points like Hoodoo and Dust Bowl, but at the end of the day, it's just really situational. And in that very specific situation, it's awesome, but everywhere else, it's just, eh. This guy is a slave to the metal and will look down upon anyone using any other melee weapon. I mean, after all, who could compete with the superior VACCINATOR master race? Clearly everyone else is inferior. I mean, if we're being honest, there is a reason that this weapon has achieved its nearly unanimous use rate. That 25% Uber is a huge deal, so it makes sense why so many people use it. But still, it'd be nice to have a melee that could at least compete with it. Also, it's worth noting that the random crit rate on this thing is absolutely ridiculous. Every time you think you have a medic cornered, he whips out this thing and bam, random crit. You sneak up behind him, he notices you and bam, random crit. It's gotten to the point where you have to assume that every time a medic swings this weapon, it's going to be a crit. Except when you're the medic and you were about to do something really cool, and then it never crits. Well, that's all the weapons for Medic. As always, let me know if you have a stereotype for any weapons in the next episode, which will be all about the sniper. So, yeah, that should be fun. Anyway, I'm not gonna make this drag on any longer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.